Hey everyone, this is Fady from Harvey Production Studio. Welcome back for another video. Today we're running a comparison between two small diaphragm mics. Recently I was on the market I'm just looking for a new small diaphragm stereo pair. I need them for tracking my upright piano right here. Sometimes I would use them for overheads and alternate between large diaphragms and small diaphragms, as well as tracking acoustic guitar and my grand piano out there in the live room. As I'm looking in the market, the really two that I was kind of honing in between and I wanted to run the comparison is the Neumann, the KM184s, which is a very standard small diaphragm mic. A lot of studios have those, and I have several Neumann mics here in the studio. I love Neumann, and I've never had any problems with them. And then, except for the price, obviously. And then on the other hand, I was looking at the Lauten Audio LA-120, which is kind of like their competitive off that Neumann mic. So let's just run a full comparison. I also ended up miking both on the upright piano right here. And then it's a really shocking result what happened. So stay tuned and let's go through it. So first let's talk from a purely technical perspective. Neumann comes in a little Neumann box that has the two mics and the two clips and a windscreen. Same for the Lauten Audio. The difference is the Lauten Audio comes with two capsules that you can switch and alternate. The Neumann comes with only one capsule that is a cardioid capsule, but the Lauten Audio, there's two separate capsules. One is a cardioid, one is an omni. So this is an advantage for the Lauten Audio. That way you can use it for room mics and stuff like that, where the Neumann is only a single pattern, which is the cardioid pattern. The other main difference when just out of the box, the Neumann it is what it is. There's no buttons or anything on it. But on the Lauten Audio, you got two buttons on it. One adjusts as a low cut and one adjusts as a high cut. So the low cut is from 50 to 150, and then the high cut, you got one at 10K and then one at 15K, which makes the mic more versatile in terms of you can color it a little bit more, obviously, than what you could do for the Neumann, which is an advantage for the Lauten Audio. Next is impedance. The Lauten Audio has an output impedance of 200 ohms, while the Neumann has an output impedance of 50 ohms. And now self-noise, the Neumann has about 13 decibels of self-noise, where the Lauten has 15 decibels of self-noise, so just a couple decibels more, which is not necessarily, shouldn't be that big of a deal at all, honestly, for something like this. And then obviously price point is significantly different. The Neumann is priced at $15.99 and then the Lauten Audio at $4.99. So there is an $1,100 different between both. You can literally buy 3 stereo pairs of the Lauten Audio for the price of one Neumann. Now the question is this worth all that money or not? And that's what we're about to find out. So in my experiment, I used my upright piano here. I have a Kawai 506. And then I set both mics right behind my ears. So it's kind of like a listening position and then pointing down at the piano. And then I put them both together and then wrap them with a rubber band. So that way they're at the same exact spot and then at the same distance and same stereo image between the mic and the piano. Then I ran all 4 channels, so the 2 for the Neumann and then the 2 for the Lauten Audio. I ran all 4 into my 4710 pre's from Universal Audio. Channel 1 and 2 is the Neumann, channel 3 and 4 are the Lauten Audio, and I ended up changing, mixing and match to make sure that there is no like noise from any of the channels, or if I have any like one of my tubes are slightly different, but it's not, they're all in the same condition. And I had everything is running on tube setting on my Universal Audio unit, and I had no compression and no outboard processing. I wanted to capture the mic in its purest form so that way we can run a clean comparison. One of the things I've noticed is that the Lauten Audio was slightly louder. It was only like 3 or 4 decibels louder, so I adjusted that gain on the pre-side so that way they're all matching before we hit the DAW and record. And I ended up recording in the mid-range and the high range, a couple low notes, a couple sustained notes. That way we can get a feel of all what it looks like. So let's jump into that Pro Tools session and I'll show you guys what we have found. Okay, before we start looking into the Pro Tools session, I forgot to mention that both microphones have the same frequency response from 20 Hertz to 20K Hertz. Also, one more thing that was a difference between both mics is the size. The Neumann is significantly shorter, while the Lauten Audio is actually a lot longer. I don't know if that makes any difference, but just for the sake of running a full comparison between both mics. Now let's look at the upright piano samples. I'm going to also include a download link to the samples in the video comments below. That way you can download the raw wave files and be able to listen to them and judge for yourself without any YouTube encoding or anything like that. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so here's both files. The top is the Neumann. The bottom one is the Lauten audio. Let's run them into different colors here. So first, I'm gonna start with the Neumann. I'm gonna play a couple of the samples here from the Neumann. Let's play now the same using the Lauten audio. And I'm sure you all noticed what we just noticed right here, which is very interesting. And I actually had to run a lot of tests to make sure that this is nothing wrong with my cables or my pre's. I swapped cables. I brought different cables. I'm using all Mogami Gold cables for everything in the studio, all my wiring, my cables, everything. And it wasn't the cable. There is something interesting about the Lauten audio that blew my mind away, that I was so confused to the point that made me consider that Sweetwater sent me that Sweetwater sent me a broken one. Or are they supposed to all be like this? The floor noise, it is not just the mic is louder. I matched both mics where they actually at the same level, but the Neumann is so clean. It has no room noise. But then the Lauten has so much more room noise in it. And it's almost like the Lauten, I don't know, it's like the Neumann was more directional at the source, like more like a shotgun where it's very clean, it captures the source, but it's not a lot of the noises around it. But the Lauten captured a lot of the noises around it. And you guys can see here and look right here before we even start this section. Here's how much room noise the Neumann is capturing. That was my body moving and adjusting in the room and sitting on the chair. Here's how much the Lauten adjusted, but then you notice it even more when you hit a chord. So here is, let's just do that chord right here. Here's the Neumann. You can automatically hear that high noise that is happening there, which is very weird, and I don't know why. I don't know why the Lauten would have that. Obviously, I don't like that. The tone is actually very close, but aside from this part, I'm not sure where the problem is. I'm hoping maybe Lauten would send another one so we can test it and see if that was the problem or not. None of these are paid promotions. I'm not paid by Sweetwater or by Lauten or Neumann, so this is like my true, honest opinion here of which microphone I like best. Let's gonna keep going a little bit further. Let's hear like the highs or something a little bit more busier of a piano pattern. So here you go. So at this point, I can start to hear a little bit of tone difference. Unfortunately, consistently having that high hiss sound is very annoying. But from a tone perspective, I can hear more presence, especially mid-range presence on the Neumann, where the Lauten, it feels like it doesn't have that mid-range in it. It's more like the Neumann has a little bit more body and more musical, if that makes sense. And the Lauten had a slightly thinner and slightly less musical than the Neumann. If I would just go purely by listening to both for that specific section, I would probably choose the Neumann over the Lauten because of how musical and that mid-range kind of gives that body to the piano that I like more. Let's check the high range and see what that sounds like. So kind of similar. I like the body, especially that I went up high. So then the piano doesn't have a lot of low mids and mids in it. It's more of the higher register. But I'm hearing a lot more body in those notes on the Neumann than I'm hearing on the Lauten audio. One thing you can hear here really more noticeable, which is a really big deal, especially when you're tracking a upright piano or acoustic guitar, you can hear the movements of my body on my bench way more on the Lauten than you can hear it on the Neumann, which is not necessarily something I enjoy. I would like to have a clean sound, and if I want to capture more of the pedal noise and capture more of the bench noise, I normally set up a second mic, whether a mono or stereo, and I mic the bottom part of the piano so that way I can capture these noises and being able to blend them into the mix and adjust how much of these noises we have. Let's put a graphic analyzer on both, and let's see if the frequency responses are any different. Okay, here we go. Top EQ is the Neumann, bottom EQ is the Lauten. And let's go back to those low chords. You can see it really clear right here, starting from like 3.5K all the way to 20K. And you can see the floor noise or the room noise on the bottom EQ, which is the Lauten one, significantly louder than the Neumann. See it here. It's hitting about, or it's speaking that section between 5K to 20K, it's speaking about negative 72 to 74 dB, while on the Neumann, let's check it out. You can see here the Neumann stays flat except for a couple peaks, but the rest of it stays at negative 80 dB, which is about 6 decibels quieter in terms of floor noise in that section specifically than the Lauten audio. Now, in terms of overall EQ, let's kind of put both on top of each other here. Overall, graphic analyzer, they're actually really close. The difference obviously is in the 5K to the 20K. You can see it's about 6 decibels louder on the Lauten audio, but then also the very low end, about 50 hertz, I've noticed that the Lauten is about maybe a couple decibels louder than the Neumann there. But in terms of mid-range level, they're pretty similar, but the sound is slightly different. The Neumann is like a little bit more colored, with a little bit more presence to it, while the Lauten has less color and less presence to it than the Neumann. I'm going to include all these samples in the comments below. Let me know your opinion. Let me know which one is worth it for you. And if I get my hands on any more small diaphragm condenser, I'm going to run more comparison with both of them and see which one wins. The idea here is to help myself as well as help others. If you are wanting to make a decision on purchasing a stereo pair of a small diaphragm condensers, This helps you to kind of get an idea. Is that worth it? Is it not? Is it worth the extra cost or not? As of right now, I'm going to stick with the Neumann until I get my hands maybe on another Lauten to make sure that that was not a faulty one. But I definitely cannot work with that floor noise, so I'm going to have to stick with the Neumann here, and that would be my main small diaphragm mic and the condenser for right now. If you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments. You can always send me an email with any of your questions that you have. I hope this video was helpful to you, and make sure you share it, and I'll see you guys at the next video.